Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. This is a speech that I'm preparing to share. This 3 parts that I mentioned. This is the first part for the Youngstown Business Incubator. And it is a group of entrepreneurs that are trying to start their business. And the major issue that everyone faces in life is change. And I state that as saying that if status quo is not an option, never has been, not now, and never will be, how do you approach change successfully in an environment where not every change is improvement, but all improvement is change? Think about it in this room as it's set up. The reality of change, you can imagine that on this left-hand side is the land of status quo. On this right-hand side is the land of positive change and rewards. So what is in the middle is the space, the territory that we must navigate to move from the land of status quo to the land of positive change and rewards. So how do you view that land in the middle? Do you see it as a wilderness full of danger, trouble, obstacles? Or do you see it as a paradise of opportunity and adventure and challenges that will help you to grow and become what you were meant to be or what you want to become? Most people live in the land of status quo. Do you have any idea why that is true? Comfortable. They feel safe. They know what to expect. Have you ever seen a bucket of crabs? If you haven't, let me describe what happens when you have a bucket of crabs. And one of the crabs begins to try to crawl out of that bucket. Guess what happens? The other crabs reach up, grab that crab, and pull it back into the bucket. Well, that's exactly what happens when someone in the land of status quo decides to make that journey from the land of status quo to the land of positive change and rewards. As they move out, their friends, their family, their workmates and so forth will reach and try and pull them back. Now, I have lived that experience from a very young age, 11, as my introduction suggested. But it wasn't until later on in my career when I was suddenly asked to move to Brussels, Belgium, from Columbus, Indiana. I was asked to move out of research and development into 2 other departments within the company. I was asked to move from Brussels then back to Atlanta, sitting in a motel for 3 months while somebody decided what to do with me when I was making those moves. And here I'm with my wife and a young 8-week-old baby. So when you're having those kind of tugs, those are natural things where people resist change. But that's the situation that as you begin to move across and you encounter these obstacles and you encounter the challenges and you master them, the other thing that happens is that people begin to still pull you back more and want to know, you hear these noises. And the other thing about this middle ground is what you call the attaboy zone, the no attaboy zone. Because every one of us wants recognition for what we accomplish. It's only in a setting like this where someone can get up and make a speech and we would cheer that and celebrate it. But in real life, most of the time, you're not going to receive an attaboy for overcoming some obstacles. You're trying to make that journey up by yourself. There are many times when I was with Cummins Engine Company that I was in the lead aspect of making change and bringing it about. And one day I was sitting in my office and this gentleman from the promotions advertising department came walking by, looked at me and said, "Larry, what is wrong with you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You got such a stressful look on your face." I said, "Well, I got this thing inside of me I'm trying to get out on this piece of paper." And I was trying to create a whole new way of going about doing the industrial marketing and product planning for the industrial group. Later on, after we launched all this, another friend of mine, Don Law, who had been a long-time manager, marketing manager, came up to me and he said, "Larry," he said, "I cannot imagine how we used to do business before you did all this. This is so fantastic. I actually spent another year training 1,000 people around the world in order to apply the tools, the way of doing things. But that's where it came from the spiritual inside coming out, being driven by whatever that was that drove me. When you accomplish things like that, you get a sense of real achievement. And then what happens is, you begin to look back and you say, where did I come from? Because most people will encounter all these stresses like that in a situation I described. A lot of people would just give up and say, what am I thinking? What am I trying to do? And they'll make a U-turn and go right back to where they started. And then you begin to hear this noise and the sound from all the people saying, boy, I'm glad to see you back here. Why in the world did you ever try to leave? And so forth. You get all this pullback. And then as you continue your journey, you wind up at a point where you begin to hear the noises in your head. And so this area becomes the great noise zone. You've already experienced the sucking zone where people are trying to suck you back. Now you're trying to talk to yourself, and it's a great noise zone. And you hear yourself saying to yourself, what in the world am I trying to do? Why did I even bother to attempt to do this? And again, most people in that situation will suddenly make that U-turn and head right back, rather than continue on and go forward. Once you reach the other side, over here in the land of positive change and rewards and new results, you begin to look at it and say, what in the world have I accomplished? And you look back and suddenly you see somebody over here that it has now you've inspired them to begin to make their journey. And so now you have people coming to you. And that's what happened with the story I just told you about doing the product planning and the market planning for the industrial group. I went through all that, pulled it through there, got it out and demonstrated it. And that was a major thing that I was able to accomplish because I could show people how to overcome the obstacles. I could show them how to take on the challenges. And actually got them to feel comfortable and confident that they could begin to do that. So that's the way you begin to inspire people. You have to do it by demonstrating your willingness and your ability to overcome the obstacles, overcome the challenges, and lead them in terms of how to do that themselves. There's a story that was told in Cincinnati Business Group in 1912. And the excerpt from that speech says that because we do a thing does not make it right. Because we use a method does not make it good. Because we acknowledge we have the equipment and technology and it does not mean, and we own it, does not make it the best. The best of us always have something to learn. We need to not deceive ourselves by our own affairs. It is better by self-catechism to discover our own weaknesses and faults and correct them, and rather than have the customers come and tell us to do that. The story that I told about beginning to, at age 11, happened when I was playing baseball. At age 11, they selected to the all-star team and was put on my way to school in the 7th grade. I stepped up on the curb and I fell down flat on my face. I didn't know what was wrong. My mother took me to the doctor. The doctor examined me and said, "You will never play sports again." So that was my first experience with a radical change that set me up for how to deal with life and change. I was devastated. I hated the experience that I had just had. But Charlie Hudenbaugh was 4 years older than me, next door neighbor, and a great friend of mine. And his mother came over and said, "Larry, here's Charlie's clarinet. And you can have it because Charlie hates it." What I did with that clarinet was to go into the band and join the junior high band. And because I couldn't go to gym class, because I couldn't do other outside activities, every day I would go into the band room, my clarinet, and practice, beginning to make my own music. By 8th grade, I was sitting in the first chair with a senior in high school playing first chair. The other thing that happened is that when the band director left to go to a teacher's meeting, he would ask me to come and lead the band. Now, he gave me all this formal stuff to do, high-class stuff. As soon as he got out of the room, we did the fun stuff. So that was my first experience with dealing with real life change. Madam Secretary, Postmaster, come to it.